In December 1995, an 84-year-old blind woman summoned her closest niece to her bedside. Her voice carried an unsettling calm as she spoke. "Write down everything I'm about to tell you. When I'm gone, the world will need to know." What unfolded over the following hours left her niece trembling. And here's what demands your attention. Several of those predictions have already materialized with disturbing precision. Now, there exists a specific prophecy she left for 2026. And once you understand what she revealed, you'll never look at the coming months the same way again. To fully grasp why millions across the globe take this woman's words with absolute seriousness, we need to trace this story back to its origins. Vangelia Gushterova entered the world in 1911 in North Macedonia. Born into poverty so severe, her family often went hungry. She was, by all accounts, an unremarkable child, with brown eyes and an easy smile.
Nothing in her early years suggested she would become one of the most scientifically studied clairvoyants in modern history. Then, at age 12, everything changed. A violent storm swept through the region where Vangelia was playing with other children. A tornado, an extraordinarily rare phenomenon in that part of the world, lifted the girl and hurled her dozens of meters across the landscape, depositing her in a distant field. When rescuers found her hours later, her eyes were packed with sand and debris. The damage proved irreversible. Vangelia had lost her sight completely. But this is where the documented record takes an unexpected turn. After weeks of recovery, the girl began describing things she had no conceivable way of knowing. She recounted details about neighbors she had never met. She described events that hadn't yet occurred. And most significantly, her descriptions proved accurate.
The reputation of Baba Vanga, as she came to be known, with Baba meaning grandmother in Bulgarian, expanded gradually at first. Villagers sought her counsel, then people from neighboring towns. But during World War II, something occurred that elevated a local healer into a national phenomenon. Bulgarian soldiers began visiting her before deploying to the front lines. Those who followed her guidance returned alive. Word spread rapidly. Even Tsar Boris III of Bulgaria personally sought her counsel. What did she tell him? That he would die on precisely August 28, 1943. The Tsar dismissed it as absurd. He was healthy, at the height of his power. Yet on August 28, 1943, Tsar Boris III died under mysterious circumstances after returning from a visit to Nazi Germany. Now, you might be thinking, that happened decades ago. How can we verify these accounts? That's precisely the right question to ask.
Because unlike many alleged psychics, Baba Vanga was subjected to scientific investigation. The communist government of Bulgaria, officially atheist and hostile to anything supernatural, became so intrigued by her abilities that they established an institute specifically to study her. Their objective was to expose her as a fraud. The outcome? Official documents recording an accuracy rate of approximately 85% on her verifiable predictions. 85%, that figure is statistically impossible to achieve through chance alone. But consider this, if her accuracy rate was this remarkable, why didn't the world pay closer attention? Why didn't governments consult her openly? Why did mainstream media consistently treat her as folkloric curiosity rather than a phenomenon worthy of serious investigation? The answer is more unsettling than you might expect. There exists a reason why certain unyielding truths remain buried in shadows.
And once you understand this, the prophecies of Baba Vanga assume an entirely different weight. Here's what the record shows. For decades, the Bulgarian government kept files on Vanga classified. Politicians, industrialists, and even leaders from other nations visited her in secret. There are documented accounts suggesting she received members of the Soviet elite, Western diplomats, and figures who never publicly acknowledged consulting a clairvoyant. Why the secrecy? Because acknowledging that they took her words seriously would mean admitting that something exists beyond what official science can explain. And that, my friend, threatens power structures. It threatens the narrative that we have everything under control, that the future remains uncertain and unpredictable by anyone. But let's focus on what matters most.
let's examine the prophecies she left concerning our immediate future. I need to be direct with you. Some of these predictions are profoundly disturbing.
Others carry unexpected implications, and there's one specifically about 2026 that connects everything in ways you're not anticipating. Before we reach that point, however, I need to demonstrate the pattern, because once you understand how Baba Vanga's prophecies function, you begin to perceive something most people completely miss. Vanga didn't communicate in straightforward terms. She employed coded messages, metaphors, imagery, symbols. When she stated that 2 brothers of steel would fall after being attacked by iron birds, no one understood. This was documented decades before 2001. Only after September 11th, when the Twin Towers were struck by aircraft, did people connect the elements. 2 brothers of steel, iron birds. She also stated that the 44th person to govern the United States would be African American and would be the last real president of that nation. Barack Obama was the 44th American president. What did she mean by last real president?
Examine the political polarization in America since then and draw your own conclusions. What I find particularly compelling about Baba Vanga is her apparent lack of interest in fame or financial gain. She lived in a modest home, never charged for consultations, though she accepted humble gifts, and seemed genuinely troubled by her visions. Those who knew her describe how she became physically and emotionally depleted after receiving messages about the future. She wept when discussing certain matters. She pleaded to be wrong. This is not the behavior pattern of someone fabricating stories for attention. Now, let's examine the specific prophecies she left for the 2020s and beyond. Pay close attention here, because there's a logical progression that culminates precisely in 2026. Baba Vanga spoke of a period of major upheaval beginning early in this decade. She mentioned a great illness that would sweep the world and fundamentally alter how people live and work.
Many have interpreted this as the COVID-19 pandemic. She also predicted conflicts in Eastern Europe involving Russia, something many connect to the war in Ukraine. For 2025, Vanga left a prophecy still unfolding. She spoke of escalating conflicts in the Middle East and tensions threatening to transform into something larger. When we examine recent events between Israel and its neighbors, it's difficult not to feel a chill. But what about 2026? What exactly did she say about 2026? Here's what was documented. Baba Vanga prophesied that 2026 would be a year of major natural catastrophes. She spoke specifically of an asteroid passing dangerously close to Earth, causing significant alterations to the global climate. She mentioned devastating floods in coastal areas, extreme droughts in agricultural regions, and a temporary darkening of the sky that would affect harvests worldwide. But that's not everything.
And honestly, the next element is what provokes the deepest contemplation. Vanga stated that 2026 would mark the beginning of a profound shift in human consciousness. She described it as an awakening forced by suffering. Humanity, according to her, would be compelled to confront its own choices and begin a transformation requiring decades to complete. She spoke of new forms of energy that would begin development, of a reconnection with nature arising from necessity, and of thought leaders who would emerge from unexpected places. And here's the element that carries implications for psychological readiness. She said those who maintained connection with something greater than themselves, those who sought truth and built genuine community, would find the strength to navigate this period. That communities would form around authentic values. That amid the chaos, there would be a rediscovery of what truly matters. Now, I need to pause here and ask you a direct question. What are you experiencing as you hear this? Unease? Curiosity? Skepticism? Or perhaps a strange recognition, as if somewhere within you already sensed that something significant approaches? Be honest with yourself, because how you respond to this question reveals much about how you'll navigate the coming years. I recognize that some people hear this and become paralyzed. Others become dismissive. Both reactions are entirely valid, but I want to propose a different framework. Have you ever considered why prophecies like those of Baba Vanga resonate so deeply with millions of people? It's not merely curiosity about the future. It's something more fundamental.
It's truth-seeking, a need to believe that order exists behind apparent chaos, that someone, somewhere, perceives the complete pattern that we, with our busy lives and limited perspectives, cannot discern.
But there exists another interpretation of these prophecies, rarely discussed, and I believe it merits exploration. What if Baba Vanga's prophecies weren't about inevitable facts, but about possibilities? What if she was perceiving potential timelines, scenarios that could manifest based on humanity's collective choices? This would change everything, wouldn't it? Because it would mean the future isn't written in stone, that our individual and collective actions still matter, that even facing dark prophecies, there exists space for active hope, not passive resignation. Baba Vanga herself seemed to believe this. On multiple occasions, she stated that her visions showed the path we were following at that moment. She employed the metaphor of a river. You can see where the current is carrying you, but that doesn't mean you cannot swim toward the bank. Destiny, for her, wasn't a prison. It was a tendency, a strong probability, but not an absolute certainty.
For 2026 specifically, there's a detail in Vanga's prophecies that many overlook because they prefer focusing on the dramatic elements. She mentioned that this would be a year when many people would awaken from sleep. Not literal sleep, obviously, but a mass awakening of awareness, a recognition that the way we had been living, consuming without consideration, disconnecting from nature and from each other, pursuing empty objectives, was not sustainable. Suffering, in her words, would be a severe but effective teacher. This recalls a principle that has echoed through philosophical traditions for millennia: the truth shall set you free. Sometimes the truth we need to know is painful. It's the truth about our own vulnerabilities, about the consequences of our choices, about what we truly value versus what we claim to value. And perhaps Baba Vanga's prophecies, regardless of how you interpret their source, serve as a mirror. An invitation for deep examination before examination is forced by circumstance. But let's return to concrete evidence for a moment. What do we know with certainty? We know that Baba Vanga died in 1996 and that her prophecies were documented with varying degrees of reliability. Some were recorded by her research institute, others were transmitted orally and may have been distorted over time. Critics correctly point out that many of her words were vague enough to be reinterpreted after events, and that's accurate. But it's also accurate that there exists a troubling number of hits too specific to be dismissed. What I believe, and this is my analysis rather than absolute truth, is that figures like Baba Vanga serve as reminders. Reminders that mysteries exist in the fabric of reality that we haven't yet understood. Reminders that the arrogance of assuming we know everything is a form of intellectual blindness. And reminders that regardless of what the future holds, how we choose to live today matters. For 2026 and the years ahead, Vanga's prophecies paint a picture of significant challenges, but they also paint a picture of opportunity, of transformation, of a humanity that, pushed by necessity, finally begins evolving towards something better. She spoke of medical breakthroughs emerging after periods of health crises, of clean energy technologies developed when traditional fuels became unsustainable, of a new generation of leaders who would prioritize cooperation over competition. I don't know if all of this will materialize. No one does. But I do know there exist two approaches to prophecies like these. The first is passive. Accept fate, feel fear, wait for events to unfold. The second is active. Use knowledge as preparation, develop psychological readiness, build community, cultivate resilience. If the prophecies prove accurate, you'll be better prepared. If they prove wrong, you'll have lived a more intentional and connected life regardless. There's no losing proposition. And this brings me back to you. Why did you click on this video? What brought you here? Perhaps simple curiosity, perhaps something deeper. A search for answers in a world that seems increasingly unpredictable. A need to find meaning amid the constant noise of news and information. If so, know that you're not alone. Millions are asking the same questions, and perhaps the journey of finding answers is as important as the answers themselves. Baba Vanga's prophecies for 2026 alert us, unsettle us, but also invite us. They invite us toward more conscious living,
toward more genuine relationships, toward greater psychological readiness, toward preparation that isn't about stockpiling supplies in a bunker, but about strengthening our internal architecture to weather any storm that comes.
Because ultimately, the greatest insights have already been documented across cultures and centuries, and the central message across these traditions is remarkably consistent. There will be tribulation, but there will also be transformation. There will be darkness, but clarity eventually prevails, and those who maintain their center will find their way. Now, I want to hear from you. Many believe 2026 will be the year of awakening. Others feel only apprehension. Where do you stand? Comment the word 2026 below if you've decided to face this year with readiness, not with fear. And if this content resonated with you, subscribe here to Living Hope and activate notifications, because every week we investigate together these mysteries that challenge our understanding of reality. Your subscription helps me continue bringing this type of deep analysis. See you in the next video, and remember, those who seek truth will find it.